Transhumanism is a philosophical and scientific movement that stands and advocates for the transformation of the human condition through advanced technology. This concept has gained significant traction in recent decades. It envisions a future where human beings transcend their biological limitations as individuals and collectively, leading to the enhancement of physical, intellectual, and emotional capacity. While many see this as a utopian ideal, others raise concern. The whole thing is pretty evenly split, with people either fearing it or hailing it as the only possible solution to whatever the hell is happening right now. But as we do here on this channel, this is about Max Stirner and his egoism as a unique way of looking at not only the past and future of humanity, but also at the concept of transhumanism itself. To strengthen this analysis, we will also draw on thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche, Michel Foucault, and Jean-Paul Sartre, whose philosophies complement Stirner's critique of external ideals and technological rationality. Transhumanism, as defined by thinkers like Nick Bostrom, is a movement aimed at enhancing human capacities through emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and nanotechnology. According to Bostrom, transhumanism aspires to create post-human beings who can surpass traditional human constraints. These constraints include mortality, disease, and cognitive limits. Fundamentally, transhumanism is built on the assumption that technology can liberate individuals from their biological shackles and propel humanity toward a superior form of existence. It advocates for things like morphological freedom, or the right to modify one's body and mind as one sees fit, and cognitive enhancement, or the use of technology to augment mental capacities. Basically, philosophers like Ray Kurzweil and Max More emphasize the potential for technology to create a future where human suffering is minimized and intellectual and emotional fulfillment is maximized. So the question we're going to try to answer through the eyes of the OG individualist and giver of zero fucks Max Stirner are as follows. What is transhumanist philosophy seeking to enhance? And what is the main premise of Stirner's egoism in relation to the things transhumanist philosophy seeks to enhance? I'm going to start with an answer. At its core, transhumanism seeks to transcend the limitations of the human condition through the application of advanced technology. It envisions a future where humans overcome the constraints of biology, including mortality, disease, and cognitive limitation, to achieve an existence that's physically, intellectually, and emotionally enhanced. Nick Bostrom, a leading advocate for transhumanism, defines it as the desire to, quote, fundamentally improve the human condition through applied reason, especially by developing technologies to eliminate aging and greatly enhance human capacity. Ray Kurzweil, another prominent thinker in the movement, believes we are moving toward what he calls the singularity, a point in technological advancement where artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence, which would fundamentally reshape humanity. He claims that, quote, we will become a hybrid of biological and non-biological intelligence, as human consciousness fuses with technology. This vision reflects transhumanism's ultimate goal, to merge humans with machines, pushing beyond our organic nature to become something more resilient, intelligent, and capable. Philosophers like Max More extend this thinking by advocating for morphological freedom, the right to modify one's body and mind through technology. In his essay, The Philosophy of Transhumanism, More describes how transhumanism promotes the pursuit of self-improvement and the overcoming of biological chains to create a life free from the limitations that currently define human existence. This pursuit of freedom isn't just about improving individual lives, but also fundamentally altering the collective future of the species. So basically, at the heart of this movement is a rejection of the idea that suffering, death, or cognitive limitation should be accepted as immutable facts of life. Transhumanists desire to reshape these conditions and try to offer a future where human potential is boundless, and the human being itself becomes a work in progress, which can only evolve in tandem with technological advancements. So let's imagine going back in time and having a conversation with Max Stirner, as I actually quite frequently do because I'm a mindless fangirl. What would we tell him? I guess it would sound something like this. So, Max, there are these people in the 21st century, and they're basically saying that human beings are outdated, that our bodies and minds have limitations that we can overcome through technology. They believe we can enhance ourselves, make ourselves smarter, stronger, even live longer, maybe forever. They're calling it transhumanism, and they want us to use things like artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and nanotechnology to break free from all the things that make us, well, human. They argue that suffering, death, and cognitive limits are just problems to be solved. Imagine a world where people don't die of old age or disease, where everyone can be intellectually superior and emotionally stable through technological enhancement. It's all about pushing beyond human nature and becoming something more, post-human, as they call it. Basically, they want to redesign humanity into a better, more optimized version of itself, free from the shackles of biology. They think this is progress. Some of them even talk about merging humans with machines, blending our minds with artificial intelligence, and achieving a state where we are no longer limited by our physical bodies. They believe that through technology, humans can finally reach their fullest potential and create a utopia where suffering is minimized and human capacities are maximized. Of course, Max, they'd probably say they're freeing people from all the limitations you had to deal with back in the 19th century. Physical, mental, emotional. They're talking about a future where people are liberated from the natural weaknesses you yourself had to endure. So, offering a new kind of freedom. What would you say to that? So what do you think he would say? I imagine it would go something like this. That sounds exhausting. Lots of spookiness happening here. Like, first of all, human or post-human sounds like the same spook to me. Also, the second one, why do you need to optimize and who defines progress? And the third spook I see is freedom, which seems to be convoluted here with comfort or safety. But that isn't really what freedom is all about, is it? Anyways, most importantly, my question is, why do you care? Like, you as a person, as an individual, why do you care? You came all the way here to ask me this, but I don't have any advice for you. None of this makes a difference. What do you want? I mean, maybe he would be more eloquent about it, but that is 100% what I would say if someone came at me with all that fearful, anxious, and utopian gibberish. So let's get into that. The first spook to be dissected is that of humanity. Then the second spook, optimization or progress. And the third would be the spook of freedom. One of the most pervasive spooks in history is the concept of humanity itself. To Stirner, humanity isn't a neutral term for the human species. It's an external idea that demands allegiance and sacrifices the individual's uniqueness in the name of a collective essence. In The Ego in Its Own, Stirner critiques the notion that there's something inherent or sacred about being human, a common belief in both Enlightenment humanism and modern moral philosophy. To him, such an idea of universal human nature, whether rooted in reason, morality, or the soul, only serves to limit the individual. By placing humanity on a pedestal, society compels individuals to act according to what it defines as human virtues, behaviors, and goals. Stirner writes, "Man is to be esteemed as the supreme being, but I am not man. Man is only an abstraction, and I, who act, am not an abstraction, but a real individual." The idea of humanity tells us how to live, what to value, and what it means to be fulfilled. It's an ideal that preaches unity, collective progress, and moral duties, but in doing so, it represses the individual's ego. According to Stirner, each person's self is unique, fluid, and irreducible to any concept of human nature. But Stirner isn't the only one who critiqued the concept of human nature and human purpose. Friedrich Nietzsche's critique of morality and human nature, for example, echoes Stirner's rejection of the spook of humanity. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche famously declared, quote, "Man is something that shall be overcome." For Nietzsche, humanity as conceived by society and moral systems is not a goal to strive toward, but rather a limitation, which is why he came up with the Übermensch. which is a liberated individual who transcends the spooks of both religion and the moral values rooted in the human ideal. Like Stirner, Nietzsche despises the idea that being human is something sacred. But even more recently, we got some philosophers whose main project was to show the stupidity in the modern notion of human sacredness. Michel Foucault's analysis of power and control in particular illuminates how the concept of humanity operates as a spook in society. In the history of sexuality, Foucault introduces the idea of biopolitics, a form of power that regulates populations by controlling bodies and behaviors. Through institutions like medicine, education, and law, society imposes norms about what is healthy, moral, and acceptable, all under the guise of promoting the well-being of humanity. From a Stirnerite perspective, this is precisely how the spook of humanity works. It demands that individuals subordinate their unique desires and will to the larger interests of humanity. In Foucault's view, society's promotion of human health, education, and moral progress often hides a deeper agenda, control over the individual's body and actions, for the benefit of those in power. Now, in the context of transhumanism, the spook of humanity takes on a new form. Transhumanists advocate for transcending human limitations through technology. But even this quest for enhancement is rooted in an ideal of what it means to be human. As philosopher Max More articulates, transhumanism envisions an improved, optimized version of humanity, free from biological limitations. However, to Stirner, this is still the same spook of humanity, only now it's wearing futuristic, tech-enhanced clothing. The transhumanist project replaces one definition of humanity with another, more advanced version. In doing so, it creates a new ideal that individuals must strive toward, a new progress that everyone must follow. Whether one believes in traditional human nature or post-human future, both are external ideals that demand the individual conform to a standard beyond their own unique self-interest. The idea of optimization has become a driving force in modern life, especially within the context of transhumanism. As society becomes increasingly obsessed with efficiency, productivity, and self-improvement, the ideal of optimization starts to dominate every aspect of existence, from maximizing physical health and cognitive abilities to achieving peak performance in careers and relationships. The imperative to optimize presents itself as an unquestioned good, but as Max Stirner would likely point out, this pursuit of optimization is just another spook. It's an abstract ideal that places external expectations on the individual and demands conformity to a standard of perfection that may have nothing to do with their personal desires or ego. In transhumanism, the idea of optimization is central. Thinkers like Ray Kurzweil and Nick Bostrom envision a future where technology enhances human capacities to their fullest potential, allowing us to transcend biological limitations and achieve a superior existence. Whether it's cognitive enhancement through neural implants, genetic modifications for perfect health, or the merging of human consciousness with artificial intelligence, transhumanism promotes the idea that humans can be optimized to perfection. Kurzweil, in The Singularity is Near, describes a future where human intelligence is surpassed by artificial intelligence, and where the human mind and body are integrated with machines to create a hybrid form of being. This post-human future, in which biological limitations are seen as problems to be fixed, reflects transhumanism's obsession with optimization. The goal is to create a more efficient, more intelligent, and ultimately more productive version of humanity. Max More, in The Philosophy of Transhumanism, advocates for morphological freedom, the right to modify one's body and mind in pursuit of self-improvement. For More, optimization is a form of liberation, a way to escape the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of human biology. By using technology to enhance every aspect of our existence, transhumanists believe we can free ourselves from disease, aging, and death. This utopian vision promises a world where optimization leads to a state of human perfection. But for Stirner, this vision of perfection is just another spook. An abstract ideal that demands individuals conform to a vision of life that is not truly their own. In The Ego and Its Own, Stirner argues that, quote, man is not the measure of all things, but I am the measure of all things. So for Stirner, the self, or the ego, is the only true authority. Any external idea that attempts to dictate how the individual should live is a spook. Whether it's the ideal of being a good citizen, a moral person, or, in the case of transhumanism, a fully optimized human, all of these ideals distract the individual from their own unique self-interest. This, again, is also reflected in the works of Friedrich Nietzsche and postmodern philosophers like Michel Foucault. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche critiques the moral imperative of society, particularly those that encourage self-denial in favor of serving higher ideals like morality, religion, or social progress. For Nietzsche, these ideals are part of the herd mentality, a way for society to control individuals by convincing them to act in the name of something greater than themselves. The drive for optimization, transhumanism, mirrors Nietzsche's critique of perfectionism as well. In his work, On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche discusses how moral systems create slave morality, encouraging individuals to deny their instincts and desires in favor of serving external ideals. The transhumanist obsession with optimization can be seen as a modern form of slave morality, where individuals are encouraged to deny their current self in the pursuit of a supposedly better, optimized future self. Michel Foucault's concept of disciplinary power provides further insight into the spook of optimization. In his book, Discipline and Punish, Foucault describes how modern societies regulate individuals through a system of surveillance and control, which shapes their behavior to fit societal norms. This form of power operates not through overt force, but through subtle mechanisms that encourage individuals to conform to the ideals of productivity, health, and moral behavior. The ideal of optimization in transhumanism operates in a similar way, by promoting the notion that individuals should enhance their physical, intellectual, and emotional capacities through technology. Transhumanism subtly reinforces societal expectations about what it means to be a successful, productive, and valuable person. In this way, optimization becomes a form of control, directing individuals toward a particular vision of the good life. In transhumanist discourse, freedom is often equated with the elimination of human limitations. Thinkers like Nick Bostrom and Ray Kurzweil argue that through technology we can transcend the biological constraints that have historically shackled human beings, like aging, disease, cognitive limitations, and even mortality. The freedom they promise is a kind of liberation from the suffering and from the unpredictability of the natural world. For example, Kurzweil's vision of the singularity, a point where humans and artificial intelligence merge, presents a future in which we have complete control over our bodies, minds, and environments, which would effectively create a utopia where suffering is minimized and human potential is maximized. However, this transhumanist notion of freedom is deeply intertwined with the ideals of comfort and safety. The promise is that through technology we can create a world where nothing threatens us, where aging, illness, and even death are eradicated, and where every aspect of our existence can be optimized for comfort and security. It's a vision of life where suffering no longer has a place, and where freedom means the ability to exist without pain, without risk, and without uncertainty. But as Stirner would argue, this conflation of freedom with comfort and safety is itself a spook. True freedom, according to Stirner, is not about eliminating suffering or gaining control over external conditions. It's about agency. It's about asserting one's own individuality, being the master of oneself, and living according to one's own desires. When freedom becomes merely the absence of discomfort or risk, it ceases to be freedom in any meaningful way, and even runs the risk of becoming hedonism, or really sensual slavery or addiction. So really, it becomes just another form of control, a new set of chains masquerading as liberation. Think about what Michel Foucault's exploration of power and control shows us. He shows us the spook that Stirner saw. The systems of control are not overtly coercive, but work subtly through subjectivation, shaping individuals' choices and actions by convincing them that they are acting in their own best interest, for their own comfort and safety. For Foucault, This kind of freedom is an illusion. It's not true liberation, but a form of control that operates through the promise of security and comfort. In the same way, Stirner would argue that transhumanist freedom, with its emphasis on eliminating suffering, is a spook, an abstract ideal that distracts the individual from the real task of becoming the master of oneself, or simply aligning with one's own desires. The transhumanist project also ignores the individual's responsibility to liberate themselves. Jean-Paul Sartre's existentialist philosophy offers another lens through which to understand this. In Being and Nothingness, Sartre famously declares that, quote, man is condemned to be free, meaning that human beings are fundamentally free to make choices, but with that freedom comes the weight of responsibility. Sartre rejects the idea that freedom can be found in external conditions, whether through societal structures or technological enhancement. Instead, freedom is an internal state that arises from the individual's ability to make authentic choices in the face of existential uncertainty. For Sartre, true freedom is not the elimination of suffering or risk, but the acceptance of one's responsibility to create meaning in a world that offers no inherent purpose. This echoes Stirner's view that freedom is not about achieving comfort or safety, but about asserting one's own will and taking responsibility for one's life. The transhumanist vision of freedom, which promises a world where suffering is eliminated, denies the individual this responsibility by offering a prepackaged, optimized version of freedom that requires no personal effort or choice. In this sense, the transhumanist pursuit of freedom is a form of bad faith, to use Sartre's term. It is an attempt to escape the responsibility of being free, outsourcing freedom to external systems, whether technological, societal, or biological. But for Sartre, as for Stirner, true freedom can only be found in the individual's acceptance of their own responsibility for their choices and actions. In conclusion, Max Stirner's Egoism offers a powerful critique of transhumanism by exposing the spooks that underlie its core ideals: humanity, optimization, and freedom. As we move forward in a world increasingly shaped by technological advancement, Stirner's Egoism reminds us to question the ideals we're striving toward and to ask ourselves, what do I want? Rather than becoming enslaved by new spooks of perfection and progress, Stirner invites us to figure our own shit out, define our own terms of freedom, and resist the temptation to conform to any external vision, whether it's biological, moral, or technological. In the end, the path to true freedom lies not in transcending humanity, but in reclaiming the self from the spooks that seek to control it. I just wanted to say thank you for sticking with me for the 3 weeks that I was gone. I hope that I have everything figured out now and I can actually continue doing this every week. I am planning to even offer one extra video per week, a shorter video. So thank you so much for your support. You're welcome to follow me on socials, check out my Patreon, check out my Substack, check out the e-zine, check out the description and see what we got to offer. Thank you so much, and see you next time.